The dim glow of streetlights cast long shadows across the cobblestones as Matteo, the wolf, Bellucci strolled through the quiet streets of Venice. To most of the city, he was a ghost, a whispered name in the underworld. Matteo was the head of the Bellucci crime family, feared and respected. But tonight, he wasn't the wolf. Tonight, he was just Matteo, a man walking toward the little cafe where she worked. Amara Di Luca had no idea who he really was. She knew him as the quiet man who came in every evening just before closing, ordered a cappuccino, and sat at the corner table reading a book. To her, Matteo was kind, polite, and a little mysterious. And to Matteo, Amara was everything. He had met her by accident 6 months ago when he ducked into the cafe to avoid a rival's goons tailing him through the city. She had smiled at him, her brown eyes warm and unguarded, and in that moment, Matteo had felt something he hadn't felt in years: peace for the first time in his life. He wanted to be someone else, not a mafia boss, not a criminal, but a man worthy of a woman like her. So he returned the next day. And the next. He told no one about her, not even his closest men. Amara thought he was a traveling businessman, and Matteo let her believe it. He knew the truth would ruin everything. They talked more as the weeks passed. She told him about her dreams of owning her own bakery, how she'd moved to Venice to escape the suffocating small town she'd grown up in. Matteo listened, fascinated by her honesty, her determination. He found himself laughing more, smiling in a way that felt real for the first time in years. One evening, as the cafe emptied and she wiped down tables, Matteo finally gathered the courage to ask her out. "Amara," he began, his voice steady despite the nerves coursing through him. "Would you let me take you to dinner tomorrow?" She looked up, surprised, but her smile was radiant. "I'd like that." The next evening, Matteo showed up at her apartment with flowers and took her to a quiet restaurant by the canal. They talked for hours, their laughter mingling with the sound of water lapping against the gondolas. Matteo felt alive, like the weight of his secret life had lifted, if only for a night, but secrets have a way of surfacing. 2 weeks later, Matteo was walking Amara home when a black car screeched to a stop in front of them. 3 men stepped out, their faces hard, their eyes locked on Matteo. "Boss," one of them said, his voice urgent. "We've got a problem." Amara froze, her hand tightening around Matteo's. "Boss? What's going on?" Matteo cursed under his breath. He stepped in front of her, shielding her from the men. "Not now," he growled. The men hesitated, glancing at Amara. "We didn't know you were not." "Now," Matteo snapped, his voice sharp enough to cut steel. The men retreated, getting back into the car and speeding off. Matteo turned to Amara, his chest tight. The look in her eyes wasn't fear, it was confusion, betrayal. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Matteo sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Amara, I never wanted you to find out like this. I'm not just a businessman. I lead the Bellucci family." Her eyes widened. "The Bellucci family? The mafia?" "Yes," he admitted. "But with you, I'm just Matteo. I've never lied about how I feel about you." "That's real." Amara took a step back, her expression unreadable. "So all this time you've been hiding the truth? What else have you lied about?" "Nothing," he said quickly. "I kept this from you to protect you. I didn't want this life to touch you." She stared at him for a long moment before shaking her head. "I don't know if I can do this, Matteo. I need time." And just like that, she was gone, leaving Matteo standing alone under the streetlights. Weeks passed, and Matteo respected her wishes, staying away. But every night, he thought about her. Then, one evening, he walked into the cafe to find her behind the counter, her eyes meeting his. "I needed time to think," she said softly, coming around the counter. Your life scares me, Matteo. But you make me feel safe. And I can't ignore that. Matteo stepped closer, hope flickering in his chest. Matteo listened, fascinated by her honesty, her determination. He found himself laughing more, smiling in a way that felt real for the first time in years. One evening, as the cafe emptied and she wiped down tables, Matteo finally gathered the courage to ask her out. Amara, he began, his voice steady despite the nerves coursing through him. Would you let me take you to dinner tomorrow?